Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Erika Buenaflor, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Cleansing Rites, Curanderismo. Now, Erika blends her experience and training in various healing modalities, and she trains to inspire and motivate people to live their truth and realize their bliss. As a modern-day curandera, she acts as a spiritual counselor, coach, shaman, mindful meditation teacher, and spiritual alchemist. So let's welcome to the show, Erika Buenaflor.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here. And what a profound book. So, I've got to ask you, what was the inspiration behind writing this book?
It was really multi-layered. It was a book that's been wanting to come out for quite some time. It was a part of sharing my story after what happened and how I recovered from my accident, and also sharing these very ancient practices and bringing out their history and show how that they're relevant for us today, and how we can use them for us today to help us with many kind of illnesses and just to help our life make more graceful.
Well, and so why don't you share with us your story for our listeners that are new to you and don't know about your accident and all the things that you went through?
Sure. Well, I am a practicing curandera. I have over 20 years of experience in training. I come from a long line of curanderas, and basically, the big catalyst that really got me to embrace my gifts was after mentoring for about 7 years and treating it somewhat as a hobby, but something that I was very passionate about. As mentoring as a curandera, that is, over in the Yucatan for about 7 years, I had a catastrophic accident where I fractured numerous bones in my body. Skull fracture, brain hemorrhage, left AC dislocated, 2 vertebrae in my back fractured. I completely shattered my coccyx. Left leg I fractured in 3 places. Right leg, knee down, bone shattered, came out of my heel. I got severe osteomyelitis, which means I got an infection in the bones, and I lost half the bones in my right ankle. And I got these fractures by hiking. By the way, I slipped, and and I was in a wheelchair for almost a year, and they gave me all kinds of diagnoses. They said I wasn't going to be able to walk again. I'd be in pain the rest of my life. They said, sorry, your coccyx is shattered. We can't do anything about that. You're going to be in pain the rest of your life. And I lost half the bones in my right ankle, or a good portion of them, and they said there's no way you're going to be able to walk without some kind of assistance. So when all those things happened, it was like a switch went on finally.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, either I listen to everyone tell me what's going to happen to my body, what's going to happen to my life, or I step into my power. And I chose to step into my power. And, I was pretty stubborn. I was, I really wanted to make a difference and be of service. And I went to law school and became an attorney. And I did, I was volunteering in nonprofits for most of my career for a decade, a good decade. Every week I was volunteering at nonprofits because I really wanted to be of service in that way. But I was really stubborn. I knew the curanderismo was a calling for me. That was something that was deep in my spirit. That was deep in my ancestry, in my soul. But I was like, well, I'm just going to study about it, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm an attorney.
Yeah. So you went straight for it.
I was like, yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah. Well, and attorneys are so well known for, I guess I know quite a few attorneys and a few federal prosecutors, and they're so well known for when they, decide to get focused on a topic, man, they go after it.
Yeah. And it took a while. I mean, after my accident, I just said, okay. I mean, I knew it wasn't my passion. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school because, although I come from a long line of my great-great-grandmother, she was a very well-known curandera. My great-grandmother was a curandera. My grandmother actually also felt the calling to healing work, but she actually went to nursing school. And then my mom was the first in our family to go to college. My father was actually the youngest ever to graduate from UTEP. He graduated with an engineer degree at 16 years old. So my mom and my father started a trend in both sides of my family to go to school. So it was just like almost ingrained in me that, going to school was what I did. Becoming a professional is what I did. So, I thought to myself, okay, well, but I felt this hunger to go deeper also. And so it was twofold. I went back to school. One, because I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to school and I'll explore academia. Maybe I can go there and I can study shamanism and curanderismo. And also, I felt that calling because, I continued my mentorship after my 7 years with two different mentors because I went to a different area of the Yucatan. And I continued my mentorship, and I really felt this calling to get to the roots, to get to our ancient history, because I felt like it wasn't there. I was looking and looking, and it was really inaccessible. So it was twofold. My going back to school was to find myself, to figure out if academia was my calling, and also to get ingrained in the indigenous histories, to get into my ancestry and figure out what they were doing, the ancient roots of curanderismo, which is what my book talks about and integrates as well. Then I went to academia, and I thought to myself, this is wonderful. I love studying. I love reading. I love the access to the books. But I realized that I didn't want to study shamans. I am the curandera. I am the shaman.
Well, and when we talk about curanderismo, where does that originate from? Because that was actually the first time I've heard about it, and I was a little surprised. I'm like, ooh, this is something new. I can't wait to hear more.
So it actually stems from the indigenous people, from the, we also call them with the Mesoamerican people, the ancient Mesoamerican people of the Americas. They had various practices of healing, of cleansing. They did soul retrieval work that, which is very popular now. That I do love soul retrieval work with people. They actually did that way back when, too, back in the ancient days. And they actually were doing brain surgery, long time ago, and healing people from various illnesses. They had compendiums of books with healing, with different plants and herbs and different ways of bringing back healing in a very holistic manner, not looking the mind, the body, and the spirit separately, but looking at it very holistically. So a lot of those practices come from the ancient indigenous peoples, which you're right, a lot of people don't know about. So that's why I feel like it's very important. I actually met with one of my professors in grad school yesterday. She asked me, is anyone doing what you're doing? Is this out there at all? Is this being done? I said, no, this is the first book.
You're right
She's
about
like,
that.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Well, and I find it so fascinating because you really do bring this ancient practice into modern times, because I think that's what a lot of people are searching for, is something that they can use that applies to them today.
Exactly. Because they did a lot of it's so amazing. When I went through a period, and I knew this too. One of my mentors that I work with too, I knew this. But one of the things that they honor is that they recognize that spaces, for example, sacred items, they have a spirit essence. So, for example, if you take care of your living space, it will take care of you. A lot of times when people come to me and they're suffering from insomnia, one of the first questions I ask them is, well, when's the last time, if not the first time, you ever cleansed your space? And they look at me just absolutely perplexed, and they say, what does that have to do with anything? And I give them a list of things that they have to do, cleansing that they have to do for the living space, in terms of the days and the rotation and everything they have to do. And guess what? The next time I see them, they're sleeping.
You gotta love that.
Yeah, because it's an understanding that, it's very simple. It's an understanding of energy, and it's also an understanding that energy is living too. Energy can be living, can take on a living form. And it could be good energy, it could be positive energy, what we call a high frequency. So our house, it can have a high energy, a high frequency when we cleanse our space, when we love our space, when we bring up flowers, when we say, oh, wow, you look so beautiful. It's after we clean our space, it's like we feel good in it. It's an offering. It was in ancient Mesoamerican people, they believe that cleaning the spaces was also an offering to the space, along with it feeling good. So it was like the space saying, why, thank you for cleaning me. Now you feel good in the space.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting when we use these ancient practices, how, when we talk about things like insomnia, which many people suffer from, or maybe, even when they get into areas, into spaces, and I've heard of this a lot too, and I'm sure you're coming across this, where people, they're maybe in their home or their work environment and they feel really depressed when they go to work or when they're at home. And it's because of the energy that's there.
Definitely. That's another thing too, that a lot of people is the energy that's there, or it's also people aren't clear. That's another thing too, that understanding that because there's so much energy that's being held, that they're walking through, that they're not cleansing that. Sometimes it muddies the vision, so to speak, our intuitive senses, our feelings, our emotions, and it's good to give ourselves, just like our cars need tune-up. We also need that tune-up as well. We give ourselves a tune-up when we go on vacation, but, it's in a lot of times we go on vacation maybe twice a year. The Mesoamerican people, they did baths. They took baths twice a day. Because they believe that water cleansing, certain cleansing should be done a lot. There were certain cleansing, if not twice a day, at least every day. And they did a ritual around it to honor the water, to recognize that they were cleaning not just their physical bodies, but their emotional, their mental, and they thanked the water, and they looked at it, just like we take the same amount of time, but it was a very different holistic approach to showering and to bathing. And it was a ceremony in and of itself, and living in the life that's more mindfully. When I encourage my clients to do this as well, living more mindfully, and that's really what it also encompasses too, is being mindful and approaching elements, approaching yourself. And a lot of the limpias are very practical, leaving a bowl of water out. They can be very elaborate or very practical, showering, lighting a candle, honoring those things. It's a way of living mindful and being more in awe and wonderment for the very simple things in life, which helps clear a lot of depression and also confusion, usually.
It's interesting. And, I love the fact that you come from this beautiful heritage, that this is all kind of interwoven within your own personal story. Because a lot of times when you hear people, maybe they research a certain topic, they don't have this really deep personal connection like you do.
Yeah, yes, thank you. It's, it's deep in my ancestry, in my family. It's funny. My family, we have a lot of the stories about my great-great-grandmother, who was a very well-known curandera, and as I mentioned, we just have so much of it, and we sit down and we talk about it, and they know a lot about the herbs and the flowers, but it's still deep in us, and it's a part that I would really love to continue on, and that those traditions aren't lost and they're maintained.
Yeah, that people are able to incorporate them into their daily lives. And so we talked about clearing spaces. What are some other things the curandas can be used for?
So curanderismo can be used also for clearing our just generally our spirit. When we feel lethargic, when we have low energy. A very simple way to do that is to, there's different recipes to take a bath with herbs. Sometimes when people come to me and they have, for example, they're feeling just very lethargic, I give them a recipe to take a bath. I may tell them to get a handful of basil, sage, rue, lavender, and make a very strong tea with it, and then put it in the bathtub with a cup of Epsom salt and cleanse the space before they go in there and take a nice bath with it. And thank the water, thank the plants, connect with the elements, and then afterwards, after they're done with that hot bath, is to take a cold shower. And guess what? They have more energy and they feel a lot more clear as well. So it's also brings mental clarity as well, and it's used for a purification. It can be used for a rejuvenation and many different things.
Well, and so when you were doing your research for this book and deciding what goes in here and how to get everything together, how long did that take you? Was it a lot of family inspiration? Was a lot of research that you did as well, or a combination of them both?
It was a combination of my training and a combination of my experience as well as my research. A lot of research, about a year's worth of research. Maybe a little bit more because a lot of it was also incorporated in my thesis when I was in grad school. That research continues on because I bounce off of it. Sometimes I leave notes and then I just continue on from it. But it was about a year's worth of research, going back to the ethnohistorical records, the 15th and a lot of the 15th and 16th century, the ethnohistorical records, and also the pre-contact. And I mean by the pre-contact, I mean before the Spaniards arrived, a lot of the codices that still remained, I looked at those. I looked at the ethnohistorical records of the Spaniards, because when the Spaniards arrived, they had a few Spaniards, especially the Franciscans and the Augustinians, and the Dominicans as well. It was a period when the Spanish crown, Philip was actually trying to get information about the indigenous people, one for evangelization and also for some of their medicinal purposes too. There were medicinal records as well. So some of the Spaniards were going around, such as Sahagún, Luran, those were a couple of the big ones, and then Landa, who, that was another story, but he did it for the Yucatec Mayan. He's another story because he actually wrote his story when he was actually up for trial for some of the atrocities he committed in the Yucatan. But actually, those people, they interviewed various indigenous peoples and they wrote a compendium of literature on the practices, and also a lot of the indigenous people, and some of them identified themselves as mestizos, meaning that they had some Spanish blood. They actually wrote their own history, and after the Spaniards had arrived, they actually started writing their own history because they wanted to keep those traditions alive. So I actually looked at a lot of different sources, and I had to look at a lot of different sources because there were so many biases in each one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I had to put them in dialogue with one another to really be able to look at them critically so they can amend one another and we can get a deeper understanding as to what were the limpas and get an understanding and just put everything into dialogue with one another. So it was truly a labor of love, and I love it. I love it. It's part of me as an academic at heart, and I'm also a curandera, so I have something that I love. I love to do.
Yeah, you can see it's very much a passion of yours. And so our audience can better understand, what are the shamanic elements of curandas? And I know I'm butchering the name here, so I apologize. But why don't you, how you say it one more time?
Curanderismo.
Curanderismo. Okay. So yes. What are some of the shamanic elements of it?
Well, so let me just walk you through it. Like if somebody came for me for a session, that will tell you the elements. I'll intertwine the elements with that as well.
Awesome.
So if somebody comes to me for a session, one of the first things I do is I engage in what's called a plática. And a plática is what's known as a heart-straightening talk, which is actually an ancient tradition from the Mesoamerican peoples it's a way of releasing through story, and it's very common, when someone, we talk to a good friend and they unload a very heavy story. Sometimes we get some of that energy, or parents or family. We feel like, oh my God, like tired after we just talked to relatives and they tell us some really heavy news. It's because there's energy in those stories. And what it is in that plática is I hold space I first light what's called a new fire. I like a charcoal tablet, copal. I start spinning it, clearing the space. I honor the space, and the space itself, I cleanse the space, prepare the space to hold the space, to clear the energy as well. And then once I have an understanding of, what the story is and what the energy, we agree on what it is, what's going on, then I have the person, it depends on if I'm talking to the person remotely, then I will do a limpia remotely, which is a cleanse, right? It's basically blowing, it's an energetic cleanse. If it's in person, then I will have the person lie down and I might cleanse them with fluoride water or with herbs, with an egg. Just depends on what else may be going on. And then I will take them through a journey, depending on, the time and how much the plática took and what's going on. Ideally, I will take them on a shamanic journey. And it may be that they need some soul retrieval work. It may be that they need some clearing of karma, some balancing in karma, some clearing in curses, and different things that they've created. And maybe they want to manifest something ideal, an ideal job or something else. And we go in and I connect with their I am presence. And we journey within their sacred heart. And I offer their I am presence. We go in, we do, if it's soul retrieval is needed or whatever is needed, we do energy work around there and then close the session. So those are basically the elements. The first part of it is the plática, which is the heart straightening type, finding out what is going on, what's needed. And, it's really about not just the story, but it's about tuning into the energy of what's being said, and how it's being said and how the person feels about it, right? And then clearing that energy. So there's many ways to clear it. Sometimes it's energetically, if it's remotely, and if it's in person, it's with various tools. So those are the two principal elements, the pláticas and the clearing, and they're all really intertwined.
Well, when these people come to you for appointments, are you seeing that almost everyone needs some type of balancing of the karma and the soul retrieval? Is that a part that goes with each and every person you meet?
Generally, a lot of people, I would say a good percentage of the people need some kind of soul retrieval work or some kind of, if not manifestation work, ideal jobs or getting something that they want to manifest into their life, something beautiful and ideal. But I find that a lot of people are really not, because they come in and it's very indicative of Western society that we believe that we have to know what our purpose is. We're supposed to know what our career is before we even experience the career. We're supposed to know how we feel about things before we experience it. When you're young, you're asked, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? That's silly because it's very backwards. It's very backwards. First experience it and then you like it. Then it's like, oh yes, then I like it. So what happens is what happens even with attorneys too, like such as myself. You go into career and you think, well, this is what it is. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work because I'm supposed to like it. And what ends up happening that every day people go into jobs that they find out that they're not liking, and they, because of bills, they make stories up. Oh, I can't leave it because I have this or I have that, or or they don't. They look at it. They get to a point where they almost feel frustrated. They don't know how to make a transition. Or they have maybe a car accident, that happens a lot too. A car accident that's traumatic, and they don't realize how traumatic, or a breakup that is traumatic, and a piece of them leaves. And or maybe they grew up and they were very quiet, and they were taught by their parents to be very quiet. There's just so many reasons that's there, and it manifests in different ways because patterns repeat. So the limpias are very important because the limpias help clear the way, open up the pathway for the energies to figure out what is going on, what else is needed, so the person can become clear and have a better focus in terms of like, okay, this feels good to me, this doesn't feel good to me. Generally after limpia, people will tell me, wow, I have so much clarity. I feel good about this. I feel good with this. Doesn't work for me right now, and I'm okay with this, but I'm going to work with it, and I'm going to transition with it in this way. So at least they have clarity as to that. So that's generally the limpias help bring that clarity on various levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and also help us to rejuvenate so we have more energy.
Gosh, I'm sure a lot of people are going, that's exactly what I need. More energy. And, and you talk about in your book, removing unwanted energies from the body. So is that part of the whole process as well, where you're kind of removing the gunk so people have that more energy, or is there more to that?
Yes. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes we're in spaces, we're in working spaces that have really dense energy, really heavy energy. And everything is energy, and we pick things up. And, it will manifest in some way, whether it's through low energy, whether it's maybe some kind of digestive issues. It will manifest in some way. And it's just like our car, we think so, like that's just so normal for us to think, oh, I need to give my car a tune-up. We also need to give ourselves a regular tune-up. Yeah. And that's what limpias are, giving ourselves very practical ways to give ourselves a tune-up. And even if it's just, because I get it, sometimes we're so busy, but turning around, like even getting in the shower and looking, maybe you say a prayer before you get in the shower and you connect with the element of the water. And you thank the water for cleansing your mind, your body, your spirit holistically. That's your limpia for the day. Living more connectedness, when we live more connectedness also, and we don't look like water like an inanimate object, and we look at it like that's a beautiful element, that has a beautiful spirit that can help us cleanse, that can help us to have more energy for the day, so shall it be. And that's how it is. And, and that's what, even our own body is wired, our neuroplasticity, we're wired that way to say, hey, even if you want to call it placebo effect, then so it is. Our body starts saying, hey, guess what? We have more energy because we've told our body is telling us to have more energy, and this water is going to cleanse us to give us more energy. And we start telling ourselves that every day. Whatever you want to call it, even if you're not a spiritual person and you want to look at like the science, just the science of it, because science is truly catching up with spirituality. But if you want to look at a lot of the studies that are done on self-directed neuroplasticity, that is what our brain is doing. It's creating peptides, it's creating neurons, we're creating neural pathways that are saying, hey body, we're going to get more energy, and just reorganizing everything to make sure that we have more energy is living ourselves and using, because that's what it is. It can be very, the limpias can be beautiful, elaborate rituals, ceremonies, or they can be very simple in terms of before you get in the shower, honor the water. Mm-hmm. Honor the water and honor that could be your limpia for the day.
Well, and I know in your book you do talk about charged water, blessed water, and Florida water, and I would love for you to expand on those.
So charged water, so blessed water, I'll start with it, that's very simple. So blessed water is basically getting water that's blessed from a priest, right? And charged water, it can be charged in many ways. It can be charged with as simply as, putting your hands, on a glass of water and just setting that intention of letting beautiful energy resonate out from your essence, from your hands, from your hand chakras, just from your essence into the water, saying a prayer and thanking the water for clearing you, for revitalizing you, or maybe if you're a practitioner as well, for charging your items. And what I mean by that is, maybe you're doing, if you're also going to be doing a cleanse with herbs for helping, the herbs to also cleanse you, and also the water that we drink from. Or maybe you have crystals that you want to cleanse some crystals, or you want to charge some crystals. So you put them in that charged water. Water is a very, in Curanderismo traditions, we always have a glass of water, charged water, handy for us on the day. Because we may do an egg limpia, which is a limpia with an egg. We run an egg through someone's body to cleanse someone, to lift energies from people and place it into the egg. But first we put it in the water so it can be clear and be ready for the person. So that's the sense of charging the water. There's many ways I talk about how to charge water in the book. We can charge it with crystals, with our hands, with our intentions, by putting cuttings in it, and there's many other ways in there. So that's a little bit about charging water. It's a very essential tool, and it's very important for us today too to think about, to be mindful about thanking the water that we drink from. The glass of water that you're drinking from it's saying, wow, thank you, water. And, late Dr. Moto showed us the studies that he did with water and setting that intention, that he studied that just as simple intentions can change the very, the vibration, the frequency, the attunement of the water itself, and we're made of water. So that also changes us too.
You know what? Those were such beautiful studies that he did, and it proves such a point of how alive everything around us and interconnected everything around us is. And I love how you use that as well. I know you also talk about Florida water in using the cleaning, and so in doing cleanses. And I'm not. I think that people, when they think of Florida water, they think of alligators and stuff like that.
So Florida water, it's water that has been prepared, and there's many ways to prepare it. There's a lot of recipes that are online. It's an alcohol-based water that is made with aromatic flowers and herbs, and you can also buy it at the ethnic sections at many of the pharmacy companies like Rite Aid and Walgreens, and they have them throughout the nation, or you can just find out how to do it online. But the Florida water, it's used to do a limpia with. So what you do is, if you're seeing someone in person, you put a little Florida water in your mouth and you spray the person with Florida water. And then you run a rattle through them, just at the very edges of their body. So you're shaking that any kind of stagnant energy. And then you sweep them with either a feather fan, with flowers, with herbs. So you actually just remove and you give that person a cleanse. So that's one way that you do a limpia with the Florida water.
Oh, I'm so glad that you explained that. And I think it's important for our listeners, because when they hear it, just like when I heard it outside of your book, you're like, what is that all about? That's very unique. I don't think I'm going to go into alligator-infested water or get some Florida water, but hey, but so it's nice you can get it at your local stores across the country, and it's so different than what people will assume when we look at different practices. Which kind of brings me to my next topic, because we've talked about, the cleansing of our own bodies, which we have to start with initially. And I love how your book talks about, the importance of that. And then how we go from that to our spaces. Is this practice also good for when we have, let's say, relationships that are out of harmony with people, like, or maybe our family or friends or people we work with?
Yes, definitely. there's many things that you can do, and depending on what the disharmony is about. It depends on what the intention is. If somebody wants to reconcile, or if or someone just wants to clear the energy from that situation. So clearing the energy, a limpia can be performed. If there's a reconciliation involved, there's many things that I talk about in the book to do to help to inspire, and it's always done in a way that's honors everyone's free will and honors and respects. It's a way of working with the what's known in a lot of traditions as this is a Catholic practice as well. It's originated in indigenous, but it also draws from Catholic beliefs as well, and Christian beliefs, from the I am, from the divine presence within us. It's a way of, you get a picture. So for example, if you have a loved one you want to reconcile with, you say, you write down a prayer, and there's a petition that you write down. You ask that all energies be cleared, and you put a picture of them. You put a candle on top of that picture, and I give instructions on what to do. Just basically you light that candle and you say the prayer, and it's a way that you're asking for, with and by the sacred fires of God's love, God's light, that any feelings that are less in love, less in light, be cleared. Mm-hmm. And if maybe that person just wants their space, that's also honored, and it's also a way to offer healing to people remotely as well. So it's very multi-purpose. Limpias they're multi-purpose. They really are.
When people come to you also, and I'm just trying to get a better understanding of like who would be the right people to come to you for different things, but when someone comes to you, sometimes do people understand that they need to do a soul retrieval, or do they feel like there's something missing in their lives, or something's going on where they maybe have a kind of a unrational fear, maybe of like water or something like that?
So, if for example someone has a fear, if there's some fears that are going on, basically, we get to what is going on, and generally that has to do with some kind of trauma, maybe in this lifetime or maybe a past lifetime. So that's the journeying part is very important, and the clearing is very, very important as well. If there is, if they know that there's something is missing, then I find out. That's why the plática is very important. Is where they're happy and where they're not happy, and what do they want, and what has been going on. And sometimes I also do dream work interpretation as well. Because sometimes people have very vivid dreams and their unconscious is speaking to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can, I think everyone's had a dream where they're like, wow, that was so vivid. What the heck does all that mean?
Exactly.
Well, and so it's nice to understand that you do these different things, because I would think, if someone needs to have a soul retrieval done, then, they may or may not be aware that's something that they need to look at. I think it really kind of depends on the people that come to you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing though, because if someone doesn't get it, if someone doesn't feel that, I'm of course not going to push anything by any means, because there has to be, and I have to tune in, because if someone's not ready, then it may be more damaging than good.
To go ahead and go there. Well, and you also do a soul release, which I had never heard of. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I know a thing or two. And so why don't you explain the difference between that and a soul retrieval?
So a soul release is basically when, for example, I forget. It's basically when we're holding on to a piece of someone, sacred essence energy of someone. And it often has, I see it very common in loved ones that have passed away, or ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, ex-husband, ex-wives. You know, we take a piece of them, or they or someone gives a piece of them to us, or also sometimes I see it happen. I saw it happen too in one situation where this was also something that's actually common as well. When there's a divorce, children may give a piece of their energy to their parents because they feel, maybe it's really traumatic for the parents. They see their mom or their dad really struggling, really suffering. Their kids give a piece of themselves. So, and later on we find out, hey, that's what happened, and that piece needs to be released.
Well, how important is that? Because we really do want to just be responsible for our own energy, not everybody else's, right? So,
yes.
Well, and so where can people connect with you, Erika, and learn more about the work you're doing, maybe schedule an appointment, and of course, learn more about your new book?
They can go to realizeyourbliss.com, and I also have online classes too on how to do limpias. So they can go on there, and I show people how to do it, and it complements the book as well. So the book, it brings a lot of the ancient history, and it's a tutorial. It's a written tutorial, and the online classes complement it because it's a visual. So you can see how it's actually done as well.
Yeah. And how helpful is that? Because I know if someone's they've picked up the book, they want to just get some more information, maybe they're a visual learner, they can do the online class, and that will kind of help them through that whole journey.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh. Well, Erika, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Erika. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book. Again, if you'd like to connect with Erika, you can at her website, realizeyourbliss.com. She's got lots of information there, and also you can learn more about her book. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.